We're looking at the I am passages in the Gospel of John. Jesus has said, first of all, that he's the water, and that if we're thirsty, if we drink of him, we'll never thirst again. He has also said that he is the bread of life. He fed those 5,000 men and their families, wives, and then he said, I'm the manna that's come down from heaven, and if you eat of me, you'll never need anything more. I will nourish you. He has said he is the light of the world. He has said he is the door that takes us home to that place of longing and peacefulness. And then last time we looked at the fact that he said that he was the good shepherd. And we found that he was also called the chief shepherd. And we understood what some of all that meant for us as sheep. Today we're going to talk about I'm the resurrection and the life. If you like to follow along in Bible in your hard copy, we'll be in John chapter 11, and we're going to be looking at a mess of that chapter. So you may want to just open your Bible and have it on the ready. This is a very unique I am statement. You know, all of these I am statements really have a strong personal application. But when Jesus said he was the bread of life, he was talking to a large crowd. When Jesus said he was the water of life, he was talking to that single woman at the well. But now when Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life, he's talking to me. And he's talking to you. And even though this is a death event that involves multiple people, Jesus does not address them as a group. He speaks to them individually. He deals with them individually. He addresses them individually as the resurrection and the life. So I just want to point out as we begin this that everything that Jesus is saying here is intended for you to take to heart. It's intended to be part of your relationship with him. All of these are. But this one is really uniquely powerful and perhaps set aside in that vein. So we're going to begin back in verse 1 of John chapter 11. This whole incident has so many, this is a well-written story with multiple plots going on at the same time. Make a great movie, wouldn't it? Begin at verse 1. Now a man was sick, Lazarus, from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with fragrant oil and wiped his feet with her hair, and it was her brother Lazarus who was sick. So the sisters sent a message to him. Look, the one you love is sick. The first thing I want to notice in this whole incident is we are talking about a relationship with Jesus. We're talking about people that have a special connection with Jesus. John just doesn't say it's Mary and Martha. It's Mary who is also the one who anointed the feet of Jesus. What's that tell you? It not only tells you that Christ had a relationship with them, but they had a relationship with him, with Christ. And then we've got Lazarus, and he's actually identified as the one you love. The one you love. Can you imagine somebody talking to Jesus and saying, hey, this is the one you love? There's relationship expressed in this entire incident. And it begins right at the beginning that there is this tremendous connection between Jesus, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. We pick up again in verse 4. When Jesus heard it, he said, this sickness will not end in death, but is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Jesus loved Martha, her sister, and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. All right, Jesus identifies that this event is intended for glorification. This whole thing is going to happen so that God gets glorified and so that Jesus himself is glorified. I just want you to remember what Jesus usually meant, especially in the Gospel of John, when he talked about his own glory. He talked about the fact that the hour has not yet come for him to be glorified. He talked about the fact that after he was glorified, that the disciples would gain an understanding that they had not had before that. When Jesus is talking about his glory, he's talking about his death. So he lets these people, lets his disciples know, the reason this is happening is so that God can be glorified and so you can understand my glorification, which they did not at this point in time. And he says they wouldn't until after it had happened. But that's what this whole incident is about. That's what Jesus says. Again, we notice that Jesus loved them. It says that he loved them. But this is really kind of a confusing statement. And depending on how your translation is, the one verse will say, Jesus loved them. And then the very next verse will say, so he waited. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he waited 2 more days. Jesus loved them, so he waited. Just think about the reality that sometimes because Jesus loves, he waits. Because he loves, he waits. You ever ask Jesus for something and he hasn't showed up yet? It may be love that's motivating him. I think what's happening here is Jesus wants to be able to teach them a more powerful lesson that can be learned only by waiting than by coming to the rescue and physically healing Lazarus. There's something bigger at work. So, because Jesus loved them, he waits 2 days. His timing is always perfect, right? You remember the mantra last time? Jesus is the good shepherd. I can trust him. He's the good shepherd. I can trust. Okay, let's begin again at verse 7. Then after that, he said to the disciples, let's go to Judea again. Rabbi, the disciples told him, just now the Jews tried to stone you, and you're going there again. Aren't there 12 hours in a day? Jesus answered. If anyone walks during the day, he doesn't stumble because he sees the light of this world. If anyone walks during the night, he does stumble because the light is not in him. So Jesus announces to his disciples, now remember, he said Lazarus he's been sent for by Mary and Martha. Because he loves, he decides to stay. Now he's telling the disciples it's time to go. And they're saying, wait a minute. Isn't that the place where if you go back, they're gonna kill you? They're going to take you out. And so they become, all of a sudden, they're concerned about the whole idea of Jesus going back. And so they raise that as a possible question. Jesus' response is, there's only so much daylight left for me to get my work done. And when darkness falls, there isn't any more time for me. So I need to go now. I need to go. Why? Because it's time for this glorification to begin. It's the time. And so he says, I need to go. And so then he informs them that Lazarus has died. He said to them, and he said this, and then he told them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm on my way to wake him up. I want you to know Jesus already knows what's going on and what he's going to do. Then the disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will get well. Lord, if he's just got this sickness, if he just has this flu bug thing, just let him rest a little bit, let him fall asleep, and he'll get well. Jesus, however, was speaking about his death, but they thought he was speaking about natural sleep. So Jesus then told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. I'm glad for you that I wasn't there so that you may believe. Okay, now we get another reason for loving them but still not going. But let's go to him. This next verse is really important. You need, if you're using your Bible, you need to underline this because this is the guy that gets labeled as a doubter because he didn't see the resurrected Jesus and had to wait 8 days before he had the same kind of faith that all the rest of the disciples did. But I want you to see who it is that comes first and says, Lord, if you're going to go back there and they're going to kill you, let's go. I'm ready to die too. Sound like a doubter to you? Okay. So Thomas says, let's go with him and die with him. Remember, this event is going to glorify God, it's going to glorify Christ, and it's even going to play an instrumental role in developing belief in the 12. Understanding in the 12. Thomas' response undoubtedly illustrates that he believed the possibility was very great that Jesus was going to be killed as a result of going back to this area. We get to verse 17. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles away. Many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. So what we find here is the close proximity between Jerusalem and Bethany, and that there were many Jewish friends that Lazarus and Mary and Martha had in the city of Jerusalem that had heard of Lazarus' death, and they had come to comfort. And so there's quite a crowd that has gathered. Even though Bethany is a very small village compared to the city of Jerusalem, there's quite a crowd that is assembled here to help Mary and Martha grieve in their loss. Verse 20, as soon as Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to him, but Mary remained seated in the house. And then Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Who is there in this room, given the self-same situation, the self-same relationship with Jesus, wouldn't have asked the same question, wouldn't have made the same statement? Lord, had you been here? I think all of us would have responded in very similar fashion. It's interesting, there are many suppositions as to why Jesus wept on this occasion. One is that it's Martha's statement that is at the foundation of his sorrow that led to weeping. If you'd been here, my brother would not have died. But remember, it's because he loved them that he wasn't there. It's kind of hard to hear. Kind of hard to hear when your love has sent you one direction and that person thinks you should have gone another. Definitely contributing to the heaviness upon the heart of Jesus. We continue verse 22. Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. Yet even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. And Jesus said, your brother will rise again, Jesus told her. And Martha said, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. First of all, I want you to notice how spiritually, intellectually advanced Martha is. She's more advanced than an entire group of Jews called Sadducees who did not believe in a resurrection. She understands there is a resurrection. And so when Jesus said he's going to rise again, her mind jumps to the fact, yes, there's a day coming, a great resurrection day, and Lazarus is going to be resurrected at that time. Her statement undoubtedly demonstrates a tremendous faith, even beyond that of her Jewish counterparts. But her concept was a powerful time, sometime way in the future. There is a resurrection day. Okay, I need to just interject this right here. This I am statement is not about your eternal hope of a resurrection day that comes at the end of time. That's not what Jesus is saying. When he says, I'm the resurrection, he's not saying, you be faithful unto death, and there is a crown of righteousness promised to you, and you can die knowing that the resurrection day is going to come. That's not what he's saying. Here's how we know that. Because Jesus wants Martha to put her faith in a resurrection and life that is now. Not at the end of time, but is now. Jesus said to her, remember, she says, yeah, I know he's going to be raised at this end time, this great and powerful day. He's going to be resurrected. And Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. It's not about what's down there, Mary. It's me. Or Martha, it's me. It's not about what I'm going to do so that at the end of your life you die with this tremendous. It's about how you can live right now. I am the resurrection and the life, and the one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die, ever. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she told him, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is coming to the world. I believe. The power over death that Jesus is talking about is not some future event. Now, he does provide that. But that's not what he's trying to get Martha to see. It's me, he says. I am the resurrection and the life. And the reason I tarried because I love you is because you need to understand this more than you need a healthy brother. You need to understand it is me. I am the resurrection and the life. Those believing in me, he says, will never die. And then he asks her, do you believe it? And what does she say? Yes, Lord, I believe. I believe you're the Son of God, the Messiah. But that really wasn't what he asked her. She believes in his deity, but he's just said, I'm the resurrection and the life. Do you believe that? Having said this, she went back and called her sister Mary. Now, here's why this is. Jesus has only dealt with Martha thus far. This is a private relationship connection about being the resurrection and the life. Now Mary goes and gets Martha, saying in private, the teacher is here and he's calling for you. And as soon as she heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. And Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw that Mary got up quickly and went. So they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to cry. And when Mary came to where Jesus was, she saw him. She fell at his feet and told him, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. Oh, there it is again. But you don't understand. The reason I didn't come is because I love you. It doesn't feel that way, Jesus. It doesn't feel that way. Mary's grieving heart had the same response as Martha's. Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus has done nothing to Lazarus yet. He's totally been working only on the faith of Martha and Mary. And when Jesus saw her crying, and the Jews who had come with her crying, he was angry in spirit and deeply moved. Where have you put him? He asked. Lord, they told him, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, couldn't couldn't he who opened the blind man's eyes also have kept him from dying? It wasn't just Mary and Martha. Others were saying the same thing. What does Jesus think of death? Is described in this text. It says he was angered by it. It's a unique word, a unique expression, does not appear very often in the Bible. One of the places where it does appear is in Gethsemane, when most of our translations will say that Jesus was deeply troubled in spirit. Jesus hates death. He despises it. It was the enemy that he came to destroy. The word that is used actually means to snort with anger. It's an animalistic word, having to do with an animal being so fearful or frightened or distraught or angry that they have this snort about them. That's what death does to the heart of Jesus. Made him angry. The idea is there's indignation and blame that's carried with this. The one who brought death brings Jesus to indignation. So Jesus enters the world of the dying to rescue those who are dying, but Jesus doesn't just enter into that world of darkness, he experiences it. This is an event about his own glorification that's coming. Jesus experienced death. Then Jesus, angry in himself again. It's just not that this has made him, he's thinking about it again, and it's burning in inside of him again. He says that they came to the tomb, and it was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Remove the stone, Jesus told Martha, the dead man's sister. And she told him, Lord, he already stinks. It's been 4 days. And Jesus said to her, didn't I tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? So they moved the stone, and then Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you heard me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd standing here, I said this so that they may believe that you sent me. And after he said this, he shouted with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Marshall Keeble, I think, used to say, do you know why he said, Lazarus, come out? Because if he hadn't called his name, the whole cemetery would have raised. I want you to notice something here. Martha has said, Jesus said, do you believe? And she has already said, yes, Lord, I believe. And when Jesus says, roll away the stone, she doesn't say, okay, man, let's roll away the stone. What does she say? He stinks. Are you sure you want that stone rolled away? His physical body's decaying. However, when Jesus says, remove away the stone, she does hesitate. No, there's a difference between saying we believe and rolling the stones away. In your life, in my life, there's a difference in saying, I believe, and rolling the stones away from that which stinks. There's a difference. Martha, didn't I tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? The stone is removed. Jesus prays, and then he shouts with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, bound hand and foot with linen strips and with his face wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus said to them, loose him and let him go. I don't know how he came out. He is wrapped up like a mummy. And I don't think he's walking. He's not seeing where he's going. It had to be one of the most terrifying moments in everybody's life that watched this wrapped up dead body come floating out of a tomb. And just like his own resurrection. You see, there are other biblical accounts of people being raised, right? And of Jesus raising other people. You know what's unique about this one? This one is to glorify God. This one is to get ready for Jesus' own glorification. In this one, there is not a stone unturned because the human senses are totally involved in knowing that a dead man came out of a tomb to life. Smell. There's a reason the Bible that it records, by now he smells. It's so that we understand people knew what dead bodies smelled like. No doubt this guy is deceased. The sense of hearing. They heard Jesus pray. Jesus shouts in a loud voice. Why a loud voice? I mean, he could have whispered, "Come on, Lazarus." But he shouts with a loud voice. This whole crew of Jews who have been there mourning with Mary and Martha, who have come to the tomb, everybody hears. And they see. They see. Not some guy who's just maybe been dead and come stumbling out of a tomb. They see a mummy-wrapped body coming forth from a tomb. But Jesus doesn't stop there. What's he say? Go and wrap him. Wonder who volunteered to do that. Let me. They smelled, they heard, they saw, and they felt. What happened to the resurrected body of Jesus Christ? Oh, he didn't stink because they put a little bit of preserving fluids and spices on his body. But he smelled. This precursor to Jesus' own death and resurrection is sometimes called by folks the resurrection that led to death. Because after this event, the plot thickens to kill Jesus. The disciples were right. Going back there was going to be the end of Christ. So as we wrap up, here's just some things I want you to take with you. If you feel like something's going on and Jesus hasn't come yet, remember, he's all about relationship with you. That's what Jesus is about. Don't you grow distant from him. Don't allow his absence to create distance, because he may be waiting because he loves you. He must have a more important lesson to teach you. Be ready to learn. There is a more powerful way that your situation can bring glory to him. So let him shine. Jesus is your resurrection, and life. Jesus resurrects us out of the most grieving situations that life can put before us. Death is only one of the things that we grieve over. There's probably not a person in this room that's not in grief of some kind today. Do you know who can resurrect you out of that grief? You know who can bring life out of that grief? Jesus. It could be that in a spiritual sense, we have become like dead Lazarus, tucked away in a cave, wrapped up, engaged in a whole lot that stinks. Do you know who can resurrect you out of that? Jesus, the resurrection and the life. When Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life, he was saying so much more than at the end of your life, I can raise you to a new place. He was saying right now, I can raise you to a new place. Because not only is he the resurrection and the life, he is the only resurrector and the only life giver. Do you need that life today? Have you been born again by his blood so that he is your resurrection and life? He is the power of change in who you are. None of us possess the ability to change ourselves. Our flesh says, like who you are. Be satisfied where you are. Jesus says, I can resurrect you to be different, and the old man of sin can be done away with. You can be resurrected to walk in a newness of life. And the death of Lazarus is the proof that he can do it right now. Right